This week we're going big. We're not brewing any kind of easy drinking session beer. Instead, we're brewing something that is richly malty, sweet, and quite alcoholic. It's wee heavy. I'm Martin Keane, taking the Homebrew Challenge to brew 99 beers in 99 weeks. And on that challenge so far, I've already brewed 3 Scottish beers: Scottish Light, Scottish Heavy, and Scottish Export. And they all share the characteristics of a strong malt profile, quite caramelly, but also relatively easy drinking and quite low in alcohol. Now, Wee Heavy shares some of the basic characteristics of those Scottish beers in that it is a malt-forward beer, but it's got a much stronger malt profile, it's a fair bit sweeter, and it's of a much higher gravity. And when you're brewing high gravity beers, one thing to keep in mind is yeast health. You are giving the yeast a feast of sugar to chew through. And therefore, oxygenating the wort provides for healthy fermentations and is more important than ever when it comes to these high gravity beers. To that end, I have a couple of new gadgets to try out for oxygenation. I have something from Blickman Engineering and from Anvil. We'll get to what these things do in just a second, but first of all, let's hop over to talk about ingredients. And I've alluded to this being a big beer. How big? Well, the original gravity is 1089. So yeah, pretty strong beer. This will get us about 8.9% ABV. And when fermentation is done, we're only expecting to finish up with a gravity of about 1023. So that's still quite high, which indicates that there will still be a bit of sugar in the beer. So the base malt for this beer is going to be Golden Promise. That will make up 85% of the grist. We're also going to add in 5% of Crystal 45. Now we also want to bring in some roasty character to this beer, just a touch. So I'm going to add 3% of Special Roast and 3% of Crystal 120. I'm also adding in 3% of Biscuit Malt and then just a touch, 1% or even less, of Roasted Barley.
Big pressure, my dictionary doesn't work. Wrong letter, fake accent on the hook. Bad language.
Mashing at 68 Celsius or 154 Fahrenheit for probably about an hour. Okay, it's time for a confession. Now, I've been using these ball lock liquid disconnects on my kegs to serve beer for years, and I didn't really know how to clean them. My only effort really towards cleaning them is every now and again I'd kind of rinse them out under the tap, or I would run some PBW solution through them. It turns out though, as I learnt on a Reddit thread the other day, that you are actually able to open these things up. So I've got a jar here of all of my disconnects that I've just taken out of my Keezer, and look, on the back of each one of these there is a little hole, and I hadn't really figured out what that hole is for. Fits a screwdriver just perfectly, and in fact from here you can open it up. Now you have to be quite careful because there are all sorts of little parts in here that we don't want to lose, but basically there is just this outer part here which will have a rubber O-ring attached to it, and as you can see, that O-ring has got a little bit of dirt on it, not too bad. Also in here, if I tip this up, we've got a spring, and then we've got this here which is what connects in with the liquid post on the keg. So I've got a mason jar of PBW solution here, and I'm just going to drop all of these parts into that jar to soak. There we go. I'll then rinse these out and reassemble this thing and hopefully have slightly cleaner liquid disconnects for future serving of beer.
Gasoline off in my cup, gasoline off in we ride. Gasoline off in my cup, gasoline off in we lit. Gasoline.
Now I did perform a mash out of this beer. I don't always do that with my system, but I raised the temperature up to 75 Celsius or 168 Fahrenheit and left it there for about 10 minutes. Now I am getting ready to boil and thinking about adding in the hops. And the hops for this beer are East Kent Golding. Nothing crazy here, going for an IBU of about 20. I'm going to add my bittering hops in at 1 hour. So if you're brewing a 5-gallon batch, this would be 1 bag or 1 ounce of East Kent Golding. And then with 10 minutes to go, I'm throwing in another bag, which will give me about 5 IBU. Now, I don't oxygenate every one of my beers, typically only high gravity beers. I think the rule of thumb is sort of a gravity of an original gravity of 1070, 1080. That's when you might want to start consider doing it. When I do aerate my beer, I've been using oxygen from tanks like this, which you can just pick up at the hardware store. So it's pretty convenient to get hold of them. And then you take an oxygenation wand and connect it directly to this thing, and away you go. There's a few things I don't really like about these tanks. First of all, because the wand connects directly to the tank, there's no regulator, there's no way to sort of really set the flow of oxygen that's passing through this thing. Also, these things contain surprisingly little oxygen. I find that after only a few batches, then I've drained one of these. And then thirdly, I haven't really figured out a way to recycle this thing. I don't know what to do with it. I don't want to throw it away, but yeah. So I am now using a full 20 cubic feet oxygen tank with a CGA 540 connection. Now, what we want to do is we want to get about 8 to 10 parts per million of oxygen into our wort, and the way that we're going to measure that is by using this regulator from Blickman. This is an oxygen flow regulator, and it connects directly onto this CGA 540 connection, so I can just screw it on. There's a knob on here which sets how much oxygen is going to pass through the regulator, and these numbers here, these are liters per minute, LPM. So Blickman recommends setting 1 LPM on your regulator, and then in a 5-gallon batch you would aerate for about 1.5 minutes, and that should approximately get you to around 8 to 10 ppm of dissolved oxygen in your wort. Now there's a part missing here. We need an oxygen wand. Well, I've got one of these, courtesy of Anvil. So this is going to connect to the regulator. The way it will do that is through just a little bit of tubing. The tubing screws into the bottom of the regulator, and then this connects into the wand itself. One nice feature I like about this one is the oxygen stone here, the diffusion stone at the bottom. You never want to touch that with your skin, just because the oil on your skin can really clog up this thing. So it comes actually with a little tube to protect it. So to use this, what you would do is you would sanitize this first. So dump this in a bucket of Star San, then put it into your wort and leave it stirring with the oxygen turned on at 1 LPM for about 1.5 minutes. Well, that's the theory. When I brew my beer, I can put it to the test. For yeast, I'm using Wyeast 1450. That's a Denny's favorite. Denny being Denny Con from Experimental Homebrewing. I like this yeast because it will really accentuate the caramel and malty aspects of this beer, and it can handle up to 10% ABV. Okay, so I've sanitized my oxygenation wand, and now I'm going to put this in for a minute with a setting of 1 LPM on the regulator. And I'm going to leave this running for about a minute. I will ferment this guy at around 68 degrees Fahrenheit, and looking forward to giving this one a try.
Is it recording? I don't know. Can't smell it, don't want to ruin it. The suspense.
So Lauren, what do you know about Wee Heavy?
So not much, but I kind of sneakily Googled, and I Googled Wee Heavy smell. And it came back with, why does my urine smell this bad?
Wee Heavy.
So not much.
Well, hopefully it will smell better than that.
Hopefully.
Let's take a look at the appearance first of all. What do you think?
It's very amber. It's a dark amber.
Yep, yeah, definitely a very dark Scottish looking colour, I would say. This is similar in colour to some of the other Scottish beers we did. Let's see about the aroma. I'm trying to put your story out of my mind now when I'm smelling this.
Well, it doesn't smell like urine.
No, no, there we go. Success. Yeah, sweet and malty, I think is what I'm getting.
Very malty for sure.
Let's go for the taste. Well, sweet and caramelly, I think, is probably about right. What do you think?
It's very sweet.
Yes. So this finished at 1021, which means there's quite a bit of sugar still in here.
So how I feel about this, I don't think that I'd want a full pint of it because I don't think I'd be able to finish it and have it taste the way it should. But having like a half pour or a half pint or something, I think would be like perfect. But I'd feel bad about just like letting it sit there. It's definitely a sipper. So everything you need for this beer is in the description below.
Why, yes it is. And you think this one was big beer? Wait until next week. Next week is a beer bigger and stronger than Wee Heavy, and it comes with a bonus second beer. So that's something to look forward to, but until then,
Cheers!
cheers!